Welcome to the Wealth Dialogue. I'm Emily.
And I'm Jack.
You know that like dramatic, almost unavoidable moment when you realize the financial situation you've been so skillfully avoiding, the debt you've been running from has finally just stopped you cold.
Right. And it's not a surprise phone call from a creditor or anything like that. It's that quiet, cold realization that the whole strategy of ignore and hope has, well, it's officially failed.
It's the point where you stop just, glancing at the envelope.
Or throwing it right into the shredder.
Exactly. And you actually sit down across from the number. And that figure, that balance, it suddenly becomes inescapable.
The mental gymnastics, they get to be too much. It takes more energy to keep avoiding it than it would actually deal with it.
And that specific feeling, that moment of total, terrifying clarity is what we are diving into today. Our sources describe it as the psychological turning point where the debt spiral finally breaks. Everyone talks about spreadsheets and budgeting apps, but we are analyzing the mindset shifts, allowing that comeback to begin.
Exactly. Because you can have the best plan in the world, the best spreadsheet,
Right.
but if you haven't crossed that mental Rubicon, if you haven't truly internalized the need for change, the plan just won't stick.
Okay, so let's unpack this. We've established that this moment, it's rarely some Hollywood crisis. The sources describe it as uncomfortable and, well, quiet. So beyond the classic declined card at the grocery store, what does this breaking moment actually feel like for most people?
What's fascinating here, and what the research shows, is how often the moment revolves around feeling stuck, not just broke. The most frequent trigger is that sudden, cold realization that your minimum payment barely covers the interest.
Ooh.
You look at the statement, you see the payment you made, and then you see the balance. It barely moved, or maybe it even went up a little.
That's horrifying. It's the very definition of running in place. And I think we need to be clear about what's happening there financially. We're talking about the destructive power of compounding interest.
Okay, precisely. Before this turning point, people see interest rates as just a cost of borrowing. But at the turning point, they see them as a cage.
A cage. That's a good way to put it.
If you're only paying, say, 2% of the principal, but the interest rate is 20%, you are actively losing ground every single month. The emotional breakthrough happens when you finally get that the math is literally designed to keep you captive unless you fundamentally change your approach.
So it's a shift from I have debt to I am trapped by the mechanics of this debt. That's the wake-up call.
Yes.
But doesn't the total number, the sum of all of it, doesn't that just feel so huge that the initial reaction is sheer panic, maybe demotivation?
That's a great question. And yes, the initial panic is absolutely real. But the studies in our sources show that the people who successfully turn it around, they stop focusing on the total number. They start focusing on the impact of that number on their daily life.
So they're not measuring debt to income. They're measuring something like a joy to debt ratio.
You could call it that, yeah. The breaking point is realizing you can't schedule a weekend trip, or you can't replace a worn-out tire without a new loan. That's what changes everything. It stops being about the creditor, and it starts being about your life.
That makes perfect sense. It transforms debt from this abstract number into a painful daily reality.
Absolutely. That emotional connection is the first necessary step.
So if recognizing the trap is step one, then we have to move to action. What's the single factor that actually ends the spiral? Is it a strategy, a plan, or something deeper?
If we look at the psychological research, the answer is kind of surprising. It's not mathematical. It's just radical honesty.
Honesty. I imagine most people would say, I know I have debt, I'm being honest. What kind of honesty are we talking about here?
It's honesty on two layers. First, there's the surface layer, right? Stopping the pretense that the situation isn't that bad. That means opening every bill, checking every balance, confronting that total ugly number.
Okay.
But the second layer is way more critical. Honesty about the behavior that created the debt in the first place.
So admitting, I'm not bad at math, I'm bad at resisting impulse buys. Or maybe I use this credit card as an emotional crutch.
Exactly. The spiral is fueled by self-deception about our habits. People think getting out of debt is about some complicated software, but it's actually about internalizing the truth. The truth that you are making choices that prioritize momentary gratification over long-term security.
Wow.
The spiral cracks the moment you face the specific repeatable behavior, the lying about spending, the hiding statements, instead of just the final number.
That's a profound shift. It moves the problem from external, the bank is charging me too much, to internal, I'm making these choices.
Right. And what's fascinating is the immediate positive chain reaction this honesty triggers. Once you stop lying to yourself about your current habits, you immediately stop justifying future bad habits.
So the honesty gives the desire for change, the moral authority it needs to actually execute a plan.
It does. You start budgeting, not because some finance guru told you to, but because you genuinely want a different life. And you know exactly which habits you need to cut to get there. It becomes a sustainable commitment.
Okay, that shift is powerful. But honesty alone, as we know, isn't enough. It's the fuel. So once that honesty hits, what's the engine we install next? We need those practical, actionable steps.
We need the map. And the sources lay out 6 essential first steps, all designed to replace that panic with clarity and control.
Let's spend some real time on these because this is where theory becomes practice. What's the very first task?
Step 1. List every single debt you have.
Yeah.
And this has to be comprehensive. Not just the credit cards, but the medical bills you forgot about. Small personal loans, old student debt, everything. Write down the creditor, the exact balance, and critically, the interest rate.
That sounds simple, but I can imagine for someone already panicking, facing that grand total for the first time, that's the most terrifying part.
It is. But the rationale here is paramount. Clarity creates control. You're moving from a state of vague, infinite dread to a position of concrete data.
Dread is overwhelming. Data is actionable.
Exactly. If the number is $50,000, you have a defined enemy. If it's just a nameless fear, it's infinite. You're drawing a map of the battlefield.
Okay, map drawn. List is complete. Now we engage. Step 2 is about choosing how to attack. The sources say pick one debt, but this is where the strategy really matters.
Absolutely. This is where you need to know the difference between the two main approaches. You choose one of 2 ways to attack: the debt snowball or the debt avalanche.
Let's unpack those because getting this choice wrong is where people can stall out.
Okay, so the debt avalanche is the mathematically efficient choice. You focus all your extra money on the debt with the absolute highest interest rate, no matter the balance. This saves you the most money and time overall because you're crushing that compounding interest. It's for the highly rational, math-driven person.
And the debt snowball.
The debt snowball is the psychological choice. You attack the debt with the smallest balance first, regardless of the interest rate. The moment you pay off that small debt, you get an immediate psychological win, a victory. And that feeling gives you the motivation to roll that payment onto the next smallest debt.
That's fascinating. So it's a choice between math and momentum. And the core rule is just action beats perfection.
Precisely. For someone who's been battling self-deception, the snowball often provides that quick emotional win they need to stick with it. But for others, knowing they're saving thousands in interest is all the motivation they need. The key is make a choice and start.
Okay, so now we need to stop the bleeding. If step 2 is about paying out, step 3 has to be about keeping money in.
Step 3 is immediate, and yeah, it can be painful. Cut one significant spending habit immediately. The key here is not just cutting 5 small subscriptions. It's finding the single largest leakage point, the daily $7 coffee, the weekly eating out, the impulse shopping, and just eliminating it overnight.
But why just one? Why not a massive overhaul of everything?
Because the goal is sustainability and momentum. You're not trying to deprive yourself so much that you binge later. Cutting one specific big habit gives you a clear, measurable win right away. And that saved money is immediately redirected to your debt. It proves to you that the sacrifice works.
Forces a habit change right away. Okay, now maintenance. How do we keep that honesty going and avoid drifting back into denial?
Step 4 is crucial for long-term control. Set a weekly money check-in. And notice I said weekly, not monthly.
Why weekly?
A monthly check-in just lets the bank statement surprise you all over again.
Right.
A weekly check-in, even if it's just 5 minutes every Sunday evening, keeps you in command.
And what should you be doing in those 5 minutes?
Looking at 2 things. Where did my money go this week, and where is it going next week? You're verifying your cash flow, making sure you haven't slipped up. You become the manager, not the victim.
And since this is a long battle, what about burnout?
Step 5 addresses that. Celebrate small wins aggressively. People often wait until they pay off like $10,000 to feel good. Don't do that.
So what counts as a win?
Paying off that $300 balance on the smallest account? That is a massive win. Negotiating a lower interest rate on a card is a win.
So the celebration isn't about spending money.
No, it's a mental reward. You have to recognize that progress fuels motivation. If you only focus on the mountain ahead, you'll quit. Focus on the ground you've already covered.
And finally, accountability. I know the research says we need some external pressure.
Step 6 is the emotional insurance policy. Tell someone you trust about your goal. A partner, a mentor, a close, non-judgmental friend. Accountability is so underrated, but sharing your goal with someone who supports you is what keeps you anchored when your motivation dips 6 months from now.
That six-step structure gives you the scaffolding. But let's bring it to life. We have a specific human example from the sources, right?
We do. The story of Marcus, which really encapsulates this entire journey. Marcus was 29, carrying about $32,000 in revolving debt, mostly high-interest credit cards and a big car loan. He was totally caught in the spiral.
Just managing the minimums, feeling that dread.
Constantly. And his breaking moment wasn't a bill. It was a question from his 4-year-old daughter. She just looked up at him and asked, completely innocently, why they never went on vacation like her friends did.
Wow. That's the joy to debt conflict right there. The financial number suddenly became a sacrificed family memory.
It was. Marcus said he didn't panic or yell. He just sat in his car afterward and felt this complete sense of failure. Not to the bank, but to his family's future. That emotional, honest conversation with himself was his true turning point.
So he had the emotional shift. How did he translate that into the 6 steps? What was his plan?
He acted that very need. He went home, did step 1, listed every single debt, saw the total. Then he chose the debt snowball method.
Why the snowball for him?
He said he desperately needed immediate psychological wins after years of feeling nothing but dread. His smallest balance was a $1,500 store card. He went after that first.
And what did he cut? What was his immediate habit change?
Eating lunch out every day at work. That was his major leak. He cut it immediately. That money, plus a weekend side job delivering packages, created this immediate surge of capital. He funneled every extra dollar into that smallest debt until it was gone.
And that immediate success must have been just, I don't know, exhilarating.
It was the momentum switch he needed. He immediately rolled that payment amount onto the next smallest debt, and 17 months later, the entire $32,000 was gone.
That's incredible. And it shows that financial success is always rooted in something deeply personal. It's never just about the money.
It's never just about the money. It's always about the life you want back. The debt is just the obstacle.
So this deep dive has really shown us that the end of the debt spiral, it doesn't begin with complex math or some dramatic event. It begins with a quiet, uncomfortable moment of radical honesty about our habits, and then the clarity that comes from just listing every number.
And that clarity lets you make an intentional choice. Snowball for momentum, avalanche for efficiency. And then establish that disciplined weekly check-in to stay in control.
Remember Marcus, whose turning point came from his daughter's simple question about a family vacation. We want to leave you with a final thought on that. If your financial situation is holding you hostage right now, look beyond the numbers. Ask yourself directly, what is the specific non-financial life goal or memory? That vacation, that freedom, that peaceful night's sleep that you're sacrificing today because of this debt.
Identify that tangible emotional cost. Because the moment you define what you truly want back, you've not only found your motivation, you've defined the ultimate return on investment for starting your plan. Tonight.
Remember, your turning point could be today.